today we're kicking off another episode with the amazing Amy Pease, who spent 25 years in the restaurant industry, rising through the ranks to become a district training specialist and general manager. But after years of dedication, she made a bold decision, leaving it all behind to support her husband's family auto body shop. That leap allowed her to retire at just 44 and finally pursue her true passions. Today, Amy is a transformational coach helping individuals recognize manipulation, mental abuse, and toxicity to reclaim their self-worth and turn their pain into purpose. Through her work, she empowers others to step into a driven, passionate, and fulfilling life. Amy, welcome to the Tarryn Reeves Show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And as I was just joking before we pressed record, it's only 7 a.m. here at the time of recording on a Saturday morning. So we're jumping into all the heavy stuff to start the weekend.
I know.
I love talking these really deep things because I think it's a lot of people struggle with them. So let's talk about how you went from being in an auto body shop to teaching people and breaking free from control and manipulation. What was the journey like? Because that's quite a leap.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge leap. And actually, I surprised the hell out of my husband when I told him what I wanted to do once we sold everything and decided to retire. He's like, "You're going to do what?" And he was pretty surprised too. But it comes from my own personal journey of defying and defeating a manipulative adopted family that I had growing up, and being in that situation where I was taken advantage of financially. I was made to believe that I would never be a functioning adult on my own without these people in my life, and was really manipulated into caring for them and providing for them all under the disguise of love. We love you, right? And so it took a lot of courage for me to step up to these people who were mentally abusing me and financially abusing me, and get them out of my life so that I could live my life on my terms. And then after the fact, after I left, what I really wasn't prepared for was the emotional stuff that was going to hit me after I left. You know, leaving was one big step, but then after leaving, you had the aftermath that you had to deal with, the depression and the anxiety, and you still had all of the negative talk that's still going on in your mind from these people who essentially brainwashed you into thinking you're not good enough, that, you know, you'll never be able to do anything on your own without them. You know, that kind of talk still very much alive in your mind. And it took me 15 years of studying psychology, dark psychology, trauma recovery, and just depression and anxiety, manipulation, studied all of that so that I could recover myself. And it's been kind of a passion of mine to want to help others kind of overcome that now that I figured out how to do it myself. And I see a lot of other women out there struggle with the aftermath of leaving something. They get the courage to leave the mental abuse and the toxicity, but then the aftermath is what typically ends up really destroying them, putting them through addictions to deal with what's going on in the mind afterwards. And I want to be able to stop that because it's not a necessary path that you need to go down. And that's where this all came from. And I'm really excited to be in this position and help the people that I'm able to help. And some of the stories that I hear are just heartbreaking. And it's really fulfilling to be able to do this and to fulfill what is my purpose and help as many people as I can.
Amazing. So when did you realize, or did you always know that this family had been abusing you in so many ways? Because I know from my own experience of various forms of abuse and, you know, just being in the area, I've got a degree in criminology. I did a lot of psychology at uni. People don't always recognize that they are being abused. And when you do recognize it, it can be very, very hard and scary to break away from that. So what was kind of your turning point? Was it an aha moment, or was it a gradual awakening? Talk about that, please.
Well, yeah, so it was, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, and it actually took a doctor that I had never seen before to really open my eyes to what was going on. Um, I was in a position where I was the only person working, supporting my adopted brother, a very capable man who could have had a job on his own. I supported him for 5 years. But he always had one excuse after another as to why he couldn't go get a job. He destroyed my credit, and always had, cars getting repossessed, utilities turned off, never enough money for food, never enough money to pay the rent. I was also supporting my adopted mother. And at the time, too, I was a single mother of a newly diagnosed autistic son. And so I was supporting all three just on my little income of, $13 an hour, which wasn't even covering the rent hardly. And because of it, I had a lot of depression. My family had convinced me that there was something wrong with me inside of my head, which was why they needed to be in my life to care for me. I couldn't do it on my own because I was crazy in the head. They put me in a lot of mental health programs. I was on a lot of mental health drugs, antidepressants, anti-anxieties. My brother would call up my doctor and tell him how much worse I'm getting, to the point that they had me on bipolar and schizophrenic medications. All of which I did not have these problems. One day I get a phone call at work that they intend to repossess my car. I get another phone call from my mother that they had turned the lights off. And then I got another phone call from my brother saying he needed more money for something, I don't know. And I lost it at work. I had a major panic attack. No idea. The car was what I needed to get back and forth to work so I could support everybody. So I was freaking out over that. I had no money to get the lights turned back on. And I had another 10 days till payday before I could even think to pay anybody anything. And so I had a major panic attack at work, and my boss sent me home. And instead of going home to my problems, I went to an urgent care. And what I was looking for was more medication. I wanted some Xanax or Valium or something to calm me down so I could think about what my next move was going to be. And in that appointment, I saw a doctor I'd never seen before, just an urgent care doctor. And he looked through my chart and he saw everything that I'd been taking, everything I had tried taking in the past that never worked. A ton of mental health medications, and he's just looking at everything and he's like, nothing is working for you. Something should be helping you find some kind of relief by this point. And nothing was. And he pointed that out to me, and he was really one of the only ones who ever stopped to ask, hey, what is going on in your life? Right. And I told him about everything that my brother was putting me through and me supporting him and his adventures that he's going on. And then, of course, the mother that I'm supporting and being a single mom of an autistic child. And, it's so much. And, I just need some more medication so I can figure this all out. And that doctor looked right at me and he said, your problem is not chemical. No amount of medications are going to fix any of this for you. Your problems are 100% situational. You change your situation, you look at what's going on around you, you open your eyes to the manipulation and the abuse that you are being subject to, and this will all go away. And that was the first time I'd heard any of that from anybody. And I'd been seeing a mental health professional for, a couple of years at this point. And they never thought to tell me anything like this before. So it really hit me like a ton of bricks. And the doctor told me, I can give you pills, but it's not going to fix anything. You're going to calm down for a minute. Okay. But you're going to be right back here. He's like, I'd prefer to not give you any more medication. And I'd prefer you to make the decisions and the choices that you need to make and fix your life. And I went home without medication. I went home with a lot to think about. And I started paying attention to what was going on and what everybody was doing to me, and the fact that these two able-bodied adults were not willing to step in and help financially, go get a job or anything. Destroying my credit, and then also, keeping me under this control of the mental health thing, so it was a form of control they had over me so that I would keep, providing for them and supporting them. And it was roughly 6 months after that visit that I finally got the nerve to leave. I left everybody. I took my son. I found an apartment. I had lost my job before, so at this time I didn't have a job. So I had the apartment. I had an apartment I had to pay for, but with no job at the time, and I had my son. We moved a couple towns over so I could be far enough away from everybody. And I just cut them off and started over with my son. And I ended up getting a job as a waitress. And that's when everything really hit me. The depression and everything started to hit me again really, really bad, because I felt really stupid that I fell for all of this. I felt naive. I felt gullible. And I was really depressed. And now I was really alone because that was the only family I had ever known. They were my adopted family. And so now I had nobody but me and my son. And so it was overcoming that depression and that anxiety and relearning that I am worth it, that I'm not the crazy one. And as soon as I started to go down that path and start to put some self-worth back into me and start getting these little wins in my life, I started to build the self-confidence that I needed to start attracting the right people in my life. Before, I had always attracted the wrong people, even in romantic relationships. Now, I'm attracting all the right people because all of a sudden I do have a self-worth. And that's really kind of where that all came from, that turning point, that doctor telling me, hey, this is the problem that you have. It is situational. And if you don't fix it, it's never going to fix it. There's no amount of medication that's going to fix this to you. And then taking it from that to going on my own and having the courage to, figure out if I love myself, decide that I love myself, and then really start to pour into myself. All of a sudden, I'm a better mother to my son. I'm providing for him a lot better. I'm showing up for him a lot more. And so it had this huge snowball effect just from that doctor giving me that one bit of information, that, that ball drop, that bomb that he dropped on me that day. It was, the best thing that really ever happened.
Yeah. Wow, what a journey. Thank God for that one doctor. And there are people out there who are willing to help, but unfortunately, in my experience and from the sound of it, yours, you really just become a number in these big systems, and they just kind of put a quick fix on it and turning you out. Which is why we need people like you and that amazing doctor to kind of go, hey, like, this is the problem, let's fix it. I had a similar experience back in my early 20s, and it took one doctor who just looked at me and she said, Tarryn, this is the cold hard truth. And I went, no, that's not it. And eventually we got there. But manipulation and mental abuse can be really subtle. And when we're recognizing these things, what are some of the most common red flags that people should watch for in relationships, families, workplaces, even their self-talk?
Oh yeah, there's so many, but some of the biggest ones, and one that was for me that was really hard to notice, but looking back I can see it now, but it was the over concern for my well-being and my state of mind. Going back to my story, the fact that they were so adamant that there was something wrong, and they were so concerned about this thing that was wrong inside my head, that I had these issues, that was a huge red flag. Yes, you would want concern from family members, but the fact that it was just it was over the top concern for me
Mm,
and my well-being. So that can be a red flag. And you do want to look at, you know, is their reaction and their concern like a normal, healthy concern, or is it, looking at your situation, is it something that is designed to keep me feeling a certain way so that I will continue to comply with whatever it is that they want from me? So
mm,
that was a huge one that I had to learn, and come to grips with, and that was probably the toughest one, I would say. Another one absolutely is the gaslighting. You hear a lot about it lately, and I'm
mhm,
really happy to see a lot of this, mental abuse stuff start to come out, so people can start to recognize some of the signs. So you're starting to see a lot of content around narcissism and the gaslighting that they do. And it's that, no, it didn't happen this way. No, you're crazy. No, no, that's not what happened at all.
mm,
And no, that is what you said. That is what happened. And allowing them to completely rewrite the reality of the situation, or
mm.
your reality, because you do have a different perspective from somebody else on what had happened, and that's perfectly okay. you know
Yeah.
and you start to distrust yourself. You start to learn to think that, okay, maybe my perspective is not reality. Maybe I'm seeing things differently or the wrong way than I should be seeing them. And so if you're feeling that a lot, and you're getting that from one particular person, you got to start to look and think, okay, are they really gaslighting me? And if they really are, then yes, that's a huge red flag that they're trying to make you start to distrust yourself. And when they get you to that point that you distrust yourself, they've got you,
Mm,
because that's the ultimate control right there, is when you can't trust your own head, you can't trust your own words or your own thoughts. They've got you. So if you're in that position and those are the thoughts in your head, you're absolutely being mentally abused, for sure.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
let's see, another good one is the future faking. This was a huge one that I would, um, run across with my family as well. And that's the grandiose promises of this, great future that we're going to have together if we stay together, right?
Mm,
My brother and I were going to eventually have this huge house. We were going to be business partners, on this journey of a soap making business that we were going to start. And every time I would think about, you know, addressing the situation, which is why it took me about 6 months to get out, because that was the tactic he resorted to, was the future faking. Okay, I
mm,
know that this is a problem that you recognize, but if you just stick with me, this is where we're gonna be, and it's gonna be beautiful, right?
mm.
And so you got to watch that when they're not making the necessary steps towards that promise that they're making you, then you're being led on and you're being manipulated.
Yeah. Look, I love this conversation because I've experienced so much of this, and
Yeah.
and it's even bringing fresh things to my eyes and my experience. But I want to talk specifically gaslighting, because this is something that seems to have come to light, like you said, or now has a name rather, and people are starting
Mhm.
to call it out. And my understanding of gaslighting is when people are telling you that it didn't happen that way, you're wrong, you're making things up in your head. What did someone say to me the other day? He said, you get these stories in your head that just aren't true. And I was
Mhm.
like, pretty sure that's not accurate.
Right.
But you're
Right.
right. It does cause you, those subtle comments
Mhm.
from people who are supposed to love you and be very close to you, often the people you trust the most,
Mhm.
can really cause you to question yourself. And I mean, let's paint the perfect scenario. You're a human, you're getting about your glorious life, you still have the inner critic.
Mhm.
That little voice in your head is always questioning, and it's
Yep.
the ego. It's designed to keep us safe, all of the things. It's very, very reptilian in that way,
Mhm.
designed for survival. But everybody has it, no matter how rich, poor, doesn't matter the color of your skin, how successful you are. Everybody has that. And when somebody is being gaslit by the people that trust them, it can really amp up that voice so it becomes really, really loud and overruling. What is your explanation of gaslighting? And how can somebody reclaim their power in the situation when they're being gaslit?
Yeah, so basically when you are being gaslit, you just said it perfectly, it is when somebody is trying to make you distrust what you saw with your own eyes, what you heard with your own ears, or what you even felt,
Yeah.
emotionally, right? They'll gaslight
And
you
that's a big
into,
one, right? The
yeah.
feelings. Feelings are yours and it is your truth.
Yep, absolutely. And we tell ourselves, through other people, trying to point it out to us or gaslight us into thinking that maybe we shouldn't be angry or we shouldn't be upset. And they do. They want to be able to control how you perceive the situation, how you see it, how you hear it, how you even feel about it, right? They want to control that. And so many abusers use this tactic, SAers, DV abusers, mental abusers, they all use that same tactic because they have to get you to distrust yourself.
Yeah.
So when you start feeling that something is wrong or off and that instinct starts to kick in, okay, they want you to distrust that and trust their reality instead. And that's where they are going to get the ultimate control over you. And that's just where it is. That's the plain truth of gaslighting. And there can be so many different layers to it, and it's all going to be in the situation that you're in. But in the moment, I don't let people do that to me. I let them know, no, you're wrong. This is what happened. This is what you said, and if we agree to disagree, we're going to go separate ways, but they know they're not going to get me to back off on what I know happened. Right. And so that's a skill that I've developed over time,
Yes.
especially being a boss. I'll get employees when I used to be in the restaurant tell me, well, no, that's not what happened. Well, no, this is exactly what had happened. I was there. I saw it, and they would try to gaslight me as an employer to get out of trouble. Right. And so in the moment, you definitely hold your ground. No, this is what I saw. You trust what you saw. I trust my vision. I trust my ears. I know what I heard. And you trust your feelings as a true, valid experience. And as long as you have that boundary that nobody is going to change that perspective at all, because they don't know. They're not inside of me. They don't see what I see. They don't hear what I hear. They don't feel what I feel. So how would they absolutely know, my situation is off from what they happen to see? And so I don't let it happen. And I stop it right then and there. And that takes some courage that you kind of have to work up and build in yourself. You have to be willing to have that boundary. And when you are setting those boundaries, they got to come from that place of self-love, because if you set a boundary, it's not out of self-love or self-preservation, you're not going to uphold it. You're going to, you're going to back off because you don't want to have that confrontation. Well, what if they get mad because I won't believe what they're telling me, or I won't let them gaslight me? Well, okay, they're going to get mad and I don't care. And that is something that you absolutely work on and develop. And that is what I help people with, is getting to that point that they can look at a gaslighter in the face and say, no, 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 you're not doing that to me. This is what I saw. This is what I heard. This is what I felt. This is what's happening.
Yeah. Do you think that the people who are doing the gaslighting know that they're doing it, are conscious that they're doing it, and are doing it from a place of nastiness? Or do you think it's just something that they're actually not aware of, and that they may be repeating patterns from their own past, or that they've experienced and they just think is normal relationship stuff?
Yeah, and you kind of look at the individual, at that point. Is this a pattern that they happen to do with you? And do they have some sort of motive?
Mm.
Okay. Do they have a motive to keep you under control or to make you believe a certain thing or way? Is there
Yeah.
something they want from you or they want you to do? Okay. Now, if they're coming from, a place that is completely innocent, then maybe it is something that they're gaslighting themselves into thinking, okay, maybe it didn't happen this way. So it's something that you
Mm.
do got to take by the individual and try to understand what their motive really is with you. So if they're trying to control you, absolutely they know what they're doing. Narcissistic people, psychopaths, sociopaths, they know what they're doing and they're very, very good at it.
Mm.
But if you've got somebody who's just had a lot of trauma, okay, and they're dealing with their own stuff, that would come out and you would be able to pick up on that too.
Yeah.
Because chances are they're not trying to manipulate you into doing something that you don't necessarily want to do or control you in one way or another.
Mm. Yeah. So once someone has had the courage to leave an abusive situation, like you did,
Mhm.
what steps can they start to take to rebuild their self-worth and confidence? Because it can be really, really scary when you step out into a new situation. And, being a single mom myself, when you leave and you start that, it can be the most terrifying thing. Not even if you're a mom, like it's just terrifying, full stop. How can somebody kind of stop and go, this is where I start, and take one small step at a time?
Mm-hmm. Number one thing you got to do is educate yourself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You got to read books. Now we have the internet. I didn't have that back then. So I read a lot of books. I was at the library a lot. That's where I had to understand what had happened to me. I had to understand the manipulation. I had to understand the lies. I had to understand mental abuse and dark psychology. It led me down a path of studying ancient warfare tactics as well, because it all tied in together into the strategy of manipulation. And so I had to understand that.
Mm.
So that's a big piece. Educate yourself on the whole subject and what had happened. The next piece, get yourself out there a little bit at a time and start to, allow yourself to live again. Don't stay at home, and with the shutters closed and keep yourself closed off. That's the worst thing you can do. If you have to force yourself out, even if it's just for a little bit. And these are things you're going to have to force yourself into in the beginning, because you're not going to feel like doing it, because your mind is telling you something else. So you've got to have the willpower to tell your mind, no, we're not going there, because you are brainwashed. You're brainwashed into feeling a certain way and acting a certain way and wanting to be a certain way. And you got to consciously say, no, we're not going there. We're not doing that. I'm going to go out to the park. I'm going to go out to this music show, or whatever it is that interests you. But get out there and start to live a little bit, and you'll start to have those good times again. When you start having those good times again, you start building up your confidence. You start building up, the right chemicals that you're feeling better again. And then you'll start to meet the right people that you need to meet. That's going to help you along this journey too. So you can't do it by yourself. You're going to have to make those connections with other people and have that human connection with somebody who's not toxic. And the biggest reason you have to do that is because you don't want to fall into the trap where you are not trusting of anybody ever again, where you're stuck in this mode of, I can't trust what any other person says or does. I can't have another relationship. You become very bitter in that case, and everything becomes so much worse. So that's why it's so important just to get out there again and start meeting people, start doing things, and forcing yourself to do it in the beginning. An exercise that I like to do with a lot of my clients is the soul searching exercise, where I tell them to take a weekend that they have off, and the whole weekend is just about doing whatever their soul tells them to do, their intuition tells them to do whatever they want to do impulsively. Just go and do it in the moment. Don't say, okay, I'm going to go do it in 5 minutes. It's okay. I'm washing dishes. You know what? I feel like I want to go for a walk. Yeah, stop washing dishes and you go for that walk right now. And what you're doing in that case is you're reconnecting to your intuition, to your soul, and you're telling yourself again that you're important and the things that you want to do is very important. And they find it really helpful to do that over a 2-day period, and they start to want to plan things again, want to plan the fun activities again. They start getting ideas of things they'd like to pursue again. And so it really helps them to start, I guess, living again after the abuse, really.
Yeah. So let's talk boundaries, because I feel like this is a large part of the work, and something I personally struggled with over the years is setting boundaries, because I think people who have experienced any form of abuse really have boundary issues a lot, and we become people pleasers, and because we're people pleasers we have trouble setting boundaries, and when we set boundaries we just let them get trampled again and again and again. So let's talk about that and how boundaries play a role in protecting us from toxic people.
Oh yeah, for sure. And boundaries were my biggest issue, and it was because I had zero confidence in myself, and that's kind of where it all comes from. We don't have any confidence in ourselves. We don't have any real love for ourselves. We don't have an idea of self-preservation or anything like that. It is all about, our identities have become all about pleasing other people and being non-confrontational and being that yes person, because that's what we were raised to believe we are to do. And this is a big problem that women really struggle with, because they are taught to please everybody. If somebody asks you to do something, you do it, and you do it nicely, and you don't complain about it. You just do it, right? We're not taught as girls to have those boundaries, really, and I like to see that these conversations are starting to happen, and a lot more mothers are trying to instill that in their children, especially their daughters. But that's the biggest piece, is not having that, and not having that inability to set that boundary, because we're afraid of the confrontation. We're afraid of people being displeased in us. And really where it's going to come from is, one, self-love. You've got to have that, okay? If you do not have any kind of love for yourself or any kind of self-preservation motives of any kind, you're not going to uphold any boundary you set, because you're going to revert back to, I got to please this person instead of I got to please myself. And so if you don't have that, you're going to go back to that every single time. So if you are having problems setting boundaries and upholding them, you constantly find yourself trampling over your own boundaries, you got to work on that self-love piece. You got to work on that self-preservation piece. And once you do, you will start to see that it's a lot easier to tell somebody, no, I'm not doing that. This is my boundary. We're not going to do this. And something else with boundaries is, a lot of people kind of have a misconception about the boundaries as well. They think that the boundaries are for other people to not cross, but it's backwards. The boundaries are for you to not cross yourself. Okay.
Good point.
So they think, okay, I'm going to set up a boundary. I don't want, my friends calling me past 9 o'clock at night. They tell all their friends, don't call me past 9 o'clock at night. Then they get mad when their friends do call them past 9 o'clock at night, right? But what do? We pick up the phone, right? When it's really got to be the other way around. Other people are not going to remember what your boundaries are, okay?
Yeah.
And they may do it on purpose. They may overstep your boundaries on purpose. They may do it because they're just not even thinking about it, okay? But if we don't have, it within us to not answer that phone after 9 o'clock, then we're the ones that are not upholding our boundaries, right? And so we got to reframe the boundaries that way, as it is something for me to uphold, not something for somebody else not to cross, because people are going to try. And so uphold it yourself. It's for you.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a fresh perspective. No one's ever explained it to me like that before. So thank you. That was
Yeah.
awesome. Can you share a success story of someone that you have worked with who overcame abuse and built an amazing life off the back of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we just went through my beta program of my course, Finding Strength After Toxicity, and I had 10 individuals who
Mm,
went through that course. And I've got 3 of them who are ready to go on to my next course. The rest of them, they're still working through a lot of their stuff, but they're ready to
mhm.
go on to part 2 of this course and really get over like the last hump. But they've come to a lot of the realizations of it's all about me and what I want to do with my life. The strength is within me and it always has been. I just didn't know how to tap into it, but they learned how to tap into it in that course. And so now what they're able to do, one, uphold the boundary, two, love themselves and realize they're perfect just the way that they are. And they're starting to have a love affair with themselves, and I got a call from one of my old clients the other day. It was a really really funny call. She's all, Amy, I finally listened to your advice, and I just quit trying to control like every little piece of my life and started to just started to back off a little bit. And I met the most amazing man for the first time, and he's so sweet, and I think he's the one. And she was just so giddy and happy that for the first time she met somebody who wasn't toxic, that opened the door for her, was a gentleman. And it was all because she let you know the guard kind of down, from the abuse, and allowed somebody to, get to know her kind of on an emotional level where she had been so guarded from the abuse. And
Yeah.
so her relationships had always suffered because of that. She had so many trust issues. And so now she's equipped with the knowledge of noticing when the manipulation is coming, the gaslight. She has all of that information. She's studied the mental abuse and what it looks like. She studied the manipulation tactics that we went over in the course. So she knows what it looks like. She is confident now. And this is where the education really helps. She's
Yeah.
confident in herself that she's going to recognize when it's coming, if it's coming. And she
Mm,
can see it in a person long before this person can perpetuate it on her because she's educated herself. And
yeah.
so now she can trust herself that she's going to make the right decision in the people that she allows in her life. And it showed in, this new relationship that she has. And they've been going pretty strong for a little while now. So I'm real excited for her.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm excited for her. Long live chivalry, a man who opens the door. Yes,
I
please.
know, right?
Now, if someone listening right now feels trapped in an abusive and manipulative situation, what would you say to them?
If you feel trapped and you're in that situation, you need to start planning your exit, and you've got to be strategic about it. Okay. You've definitely got to have that plan. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? How am I going to support myself? And the answer is never, I can't do this because I don't have these things. The answer is, how am I going to get these things? What am I going to do to get these things? And take the action to put those things in line. Okay.
Yeah.
And another thing that a lot of people end up letting themselves get hung up on is they're afraid of what maybe this other person is going to do when they do leave, and have a plan for that too. Plan for the worst, hope for the best, but
Yeah.
what you're going to do if this person reacts in worst case scenario, right? How are we going to handle a situation like that? Because you never know how they're going to react, right?
Mm,
And so it's definitely all about planning and strategy and learning how to outsmart them at their own game. That's ultimately the biggest key. Figure out the game they're playing with you, learn their rules, play the
mm,
game, and defeat them at it. And that's where the whole strategy behind the manipulation comes in. Again, going back to the education piece. Learn what they're doing and the tactics they're using against you, and then learn how to defeat those tactics.
yeah. I love that. Amy, I think it's really inspiring how you've managed to turn your pain into purpose,
Thank you.
which is one of the things that you do, and you're now, you know, giving back from a place of experience, and life has allowed you to do that, or rather, you created that for yourself. So you should be
Yeah.
very, very proud of yourself. Thank you for the
Thank you.
work that you do. For those of you who are wanting to connect with Amy, I'm going to put all of her links and things in the show notes. Go and check her out. Her content is great. Obviously, she's great. She's a whole vibe. Check her out if you're seeing the
Thank you.
video version of this. Now, before we love and leave each other, Amy, we have a tradition on the podcast called the book drop.
Mhm.
And we want to know what book has impacted you either personally or professionally, and why.
Okay, I'm going to give you one that really helped me right after I left my manipulative situation, and it was called Mind Control
Mm,
by Dr. Ha Ha Lung. It was a pen name, but you'll find it in the martial arts section actually. But it is a book all about manipulation, manipulative tactics. And he goes into a little bit about ancient warfare strategies, Sun Tzu, Machiavelli, all of that. But it all ties into the manipulation piece so well and the mind control piece. But what this book does is it opens your eyes to all the tactics that they've used against you this whole time, and then how to combat it, and really get it to stop. Not in any kind of fluffy way. It's not any kind of a fluffy book. It's not a book to make you feel good. It is straight tactical strategy, because
yeah.
that's what you need when you're dealing with somebody like this. So that's what
Mm,
I love about this book. Helped a lot in the beginning when I was trying to overcome everything in my head.
yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom today, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.